Hey there folks, my name is Kurt and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about what I like to call the Great Blizzard Bank Heist. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, there is a link in the top right hand corner of your video that will take you directly to a video that I made that summarizes the situation entirely. So feel free to click on that. There is not much news this week, although there are sporadic reports that this could maybe be happening again, ? So please go check your guild banks. Let us know if anything new appears to be missing, because that would be interesting to follow. Of course, I hope it's not happening again. But yeah, please do let us know in the comments. Having said that, speaking of the comments, I did want to address something that I've seen in my comments, in some posts around the internet, and that is the idea that DEI is to blame for the bug that caused all of our items to go missing. And in order to discuss that, we sort of have to lay out what DEI is and what it means, and what I believe these commenters mean when they say DEI is to blame. So, here we go. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's sort of a hiring practice, sort of a value that a lot of companies these days, including the one that I work at, hold close to and buy into. And I'd like to hit upon each of those things individually and then talk about them as a whole. So, diversity basically just means that your office or whatever your company isn't filled entirely by one group of people. Like, it would be sort of silly to have an office that is entirely, white women. It would be kind of silly to have an office that's entirely white men, or what have you. Especially in a locale like the United States of America, where the population itself has multiple ethnic groups, and multiple minorities that are in the general population. And so a lot of companies look at these sorts of things and try to have better representation of the general population. That's sort of diversity, and we'll get to why diversity is important later, or at least why I think some companies think it's important. Equity, and it's important that the E is not equality, it's equity. Equity means that it's not, that people are not always treated exactly the same. And is that a good thing? Well, let's see. Let's say that I have a job that I have to start working at 9 a.m. And let's say that somebody else is in the exact same position, at the exact same job as me, also has to start at 9 a.m. Let's say that the other person is a woman and is a single mom. And so every day she has to get her kid or kids ready for school, send them to school, and then she has to worry about getting to work herself. Meanwhile, I, not having kids, but I do have 2 adorable nephews, I'll have you know. But I, not having kids, I don't have to worry about getting someone else off to school. I just need to wake up, have some form of breakfast, and go. So you see, it's easier for me to get to work at 9 sharp than it might be for this single mom. Can you see how I would probably miss less work or be late less frequently than that other person? So should someone make accommodations for the other person? I think so. I think that's okay. I think that they should maybe make sure that we all are aware that if we have other situations that prevent us from being there at 9 a.m. sharp every single day, we should maybe talk to our managers about it. And then our managers can make sure that that's cool. But like, I don't see a problem with that. I don't see how giving somebody else the opportunity to make up that time after work or what have you is a bad thing. And equality would just be treating us exactly the same when we don't have the exact same life. Similarly, I had the opportunity to go to an all-girls private school for 11 years of my life. Not a lot of people in my city here of Montreal, Canada, can necessarily say the same thing. Maybe 5 years, which is our high school year, but maybe not the full 11 years. So I had experiences and I have learned things from those experiences from those 11 years. And so other people might not have had that incredible privilege. So to treat us as exactly the same when it comes to, I guess, being hired or what have you, isn't exactly fair, because I might not have had to have a part-time job after school, whereas someone else did, and maybe that interfered with their studies. So there's a lot in a person's life that can change what is fair to that person. And being treated like everybody else is often not fair to those who are underrepresented in various domains, or those who did not have the privileges growing up that others did. So that's equity. It's not equality, it's equity. And the sort of goal of it is to make sure that everybody has similar opportunities, if not the same opportunities, given their lives, essentially. And then you have inclusion. And that is making sure that people feel welcome, even if they are a minority. And that'll tie back into diversity in a second, but why do you want to have minorities feeling welcome? I mean, apart from it just being polite, for one thing, apart from that, it is said, and there are studies on this, that having a more diverse workforce leads to better results in terms of corporate success. And so you want to make sure, if you're a company in the West, you want to have a company that is more diverse than not in order to have better corporate success. Like that's the goal of the company, right? Is to make money and all of that stuff, right? And so if you can gain a competitive advantage over someone else who's not being more diverse, who's not having this influx of new ideas, like you will take it because it will lead to more money. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that a lot of companies have adopted as a value, or as a way of hiring or what have you. And I think it's important. I think that we can do one better than like two heads are better than one, but like different experiences are better than one. So if I didn't have a part-time job after school one day, or throughout, say, my last year of high school, like other people might have, because I was privileged, I won't know what it's like to have to work and study at the same time, and maybe also participate in some athletics or other after-school activities. I don't know what that's like. So I cannot relate properly to somebody who has gone through that about that. I can relate to them on other levels, but I will never really understand what that was like for them. Similarly, when we're talking about video games, we're talking about stories. And if you read Play Nice, which is the book by Jason Schreier about the rise and the fall and the future of Blizzard Entertainment, you will see that Blizzard Entertainment was originally very male-dominated, just dudes, usually in their 20s, mostly white, and that's it. And they wanted to make games that they would enjoy playing, and that's cool. They put out some great games, but those games were made by mostly young white men for young white men. And that's okay. That's fine. Their games got adopted all over the world by all kinds of people. I didn't really play a lot of the Warcraft, the original Warcraft games. My brother did, but I wasn't into it. Same with StarCraft, wasn't into it. I like Diablo. I played Diablo and Diablo 2 a lot. And then, obviously, I started playing World of Warcraft. So World of Warcraft was made by Blizzard at a time when Blizzard was still very male-dominated. And you can tell. You can look at some of the quests, some of the stories, some of the armor, and go, wow. Like, this is just like a male fantasy. You look at the Night Elf females. The Night Elf women are like bouncing. That's their idle animation. And their breasts also bounce. That's why my tune is a male Night Elf. Because I wanted to be a hunter, I didn't want to be a dwarf. I wanted to be an elven hunter. And I could not stand the female bouncing. Also, I wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be like treated as a woman, because I've been in male-dominated spaces before, and it's not been fun for me. So I have personally usually chosen a character who I can sort of hide behind and not have to engage. And so that's what I did with Kurn. Madrona is a different story. I felt safer. I had a guild, etc. That's fine. But wandering into the world of Warcraft for the very first time, it was a male Night Elf I chose, because I saw immediately how overly fantasized, fantastic the Night Elf women were. And then later, you see the Draenei women as well, and the Blood Elves, and anyway. But you also saw it in the armor. Like, look at the glorious armor. And the thing that I will always come back to is the leggings of concentrated darkness. These were introduced in Burning Crusade, and on a female human tune, it looks like thigh-high stockings. And on a male human tune, it looks like a pair of black pants. And it's like, why? There is no reason for this. And so you can see from early on in the game how it was created for the male fantasy. The male gaze, Gaze, by the way, for the view of men. And like, that's okay. But like, this game was really interesting to me, and so I would overlook these things, and I would recognize that there weren't many women, hardly any women, in the game. There was Jaina and Anixia, and at least on the Alliance side, and Tyrande, I guess. That's about all I can really think of, and Tyrande didn't really do a whole lot. So, like, there wasn't a whole lot of compelling storytelling to do with women. But that was okay, because the game itself was interesting enough to me. Like, I was still learning mechanics. I didn't know anything about hit rating until Burning Crusade, which is really embarrassing. Except that I never missed a shot in Magmadar, because I knew enough to have hit rating for that. I didn't realize you had to always have hit rating. Anyway. So, what I'm trying to say here is that I continued to play WoW, even as I knew it was male-dominated. I would be liable to attract unwanted attention if I made it known that I was a woman. And I would also just have to suck it up and deal with the whole armor thing where, one toon looks half naked and the other one is like fully clothed. And still, I persisted because I was having fun in the game killing raid bosses. And then, WoW has changed a lot over the years. And I've seen it, like in Battle for Azeroth. No, wait. Is that the right? I don't remember all the expansions. I think it was Battle for Azeroth, where you're in Jaina's home or whatever. Like, Kultiris, there we go. That's the name of it. Where you see, like, humans of other shapes and sizes. So these tiny women and buff men. You actually had, variety in the humans. And that was interesting. And you had Jaina taking a big role along with the sort of evil stepmother type person. It was interesting. And this was a big departure for Blizzard after it's just kind of a guy's trip, a boys' trip to Draenor in Warlords of Draenor. And it's like how did I feel when I heard Chris Metzen talk about how Draenor was kind of a boys' trip? I didn't feel great. I did not feel included. I'm like, well, why am I paying you $15 a month? Why have I been paying you $15 a month for God knows how many years? I wasn't thrilled by that. And so I was doing better with Battle for Azeroth, and I enjoyed Dragonflight because there were lots of strong female characters, there were queer characters. I really thought, okay, this is them making steps to include more people. And in order to include people, you have to have genuine storytellers on the other side who are creating the stories. So you have to have queer folks, you have to have women, you have to have people of color at Blizzard to tell these more diverse stories in order to include more diverse players and grow that player base. And, I've seen a lot, like another step taken in the War Within, despite the fact it's been very buggy. And we'll talk about that. I'm not done yet, don't worry. We'll get there. Despite the fact it's been very buggy, you have Farron Lothar, who is a woman of color who is also disabled, missing her left arm, I believe it is, and puts on a prosthetic shield on her arm. And she's disabled, she's a woman of color. We don't see that in WoW. Everybody is some friggin' action hero. I think it's great. that we're seeing more diverse characters with more diverse storytelling behind them. And they're not, like, their diversity isn't necessarily taking the spotlight away from the game. If you want to learn more about Farron, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to. And I think that that's great, because I was interested in learning more about this woman. So I did all the quests. But you didn't have to. You only had to do some quests to progress in the storyline. So that's what Blizzard's been doing, is they've been hiring more diverse people than young, white, straight, cisgender dudes. And in so doing, they are able to make their game more genuine for people who are typically underrepresented in games. Like women, like people of color, like disabled folks, all this stuff. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So now, 20-some minutes into this ramble, I'm going to talk about these comments. These comments where people are saying it's DEI's fault. What this is saying to me, anyway, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, unfortunately, is that these people who are commenting that the bugs and stuff are the fault of DEI is blaming Blizzard and Microsoft for hiring, quote-unquote, the wrong people, not straight cis white dudes, but rather people of color, queer folks, people who might not have the same resume as somebody else, but maybe has the same skill set, but hasn't had the opportunities given to them the way others have. And I think that that's incredibly short-sighted. The fact that you have people at Blizzard and at Microsoft who are not all the same culture, not all the same ethnicity, not all the same religion, not all the same orientation or gender, I think it's great, because it opens up the game's stories to other people who might not have felt included in the first place. And how does that harm your game? Oh, of course, the great Blizzard bank heist. That's how it affects the game, Kern. No. That is not. If I had to put money on it, that is not a DEI thing. That is a friggin' corporate greed thing. That is Microsoft forcing Blizzard's hand. That is Microsoft telling Blizzard, hey, we have a deadline. You need to get your stuff together, and you need to put this game out on this date. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, it was a lot more loosey-goosey around deadlines. The sort of mantra at Blizzard was, it'll be done when it's ready. And you don't have that kind of leeway with Microsoft as your corporate overlord any longer. Am I actually defending Blizzard? Yeah, I actually am for once, and it does not feel good. Because I still think that they did the wrong thing with the bank heist, but I don't think it's because of sloppy code done by some DEI hire who doesn't maybe deserve to be there. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that this expansion was rushed. I think that they launched in late August in order to bump up their financials for the month of August and September, because Microsoft has a fiscal year that starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th the following year. And so that would be a really nice first quarter for them if they can significantly sell the expansion. And they were coming off of Dragonflight, which was not a bad expansion. It wasn't like the best, but it wasn't bad. And so they had the opportunity to, have a strong first quarter. And so that necessitated them to launch maybe before it was ready. I don't blame Blizzard so much as I blame Microsoft for forcing the timing. I do blame people for not testing adequately, but I don't think that that's the fault of anyone who is a quote-unquote DEI hire. I think the problem is that people are human, and we're probably already running at crunch time when this stuff launched. And it's wrong that they're not reimbursing us, that they're not restoring our stuff. That's wrong. I don't think anyone did it on purpose. And I don't think it's because somebody did this because they weren't a good coder. I mean, all coders make mistakes. Every single programmer. I've got my own coding projects. I make mistakes all the time. I see people who do this for a living at the company at which I work who make really big mistakes. And, it's not because they're a DEI hire. It's because they made a mistake. We are human, and we have to accept that people are human and will make mistakes, and that it's not anything to do with whether or not they deserve to be there, because they were only hired because, of their ethnicity or their, gender identity or their sexual orientation. It really is just a mistake. And I don't think DEI had anything to do with it. I think it was just a mistake. And I think the bottom line is that we're really mad about it, and we need someone to blame. Don't blame the developer. Who knows what was going on for that developer at that point in time, or those developers, probably more accurately. Maybe one has a newborn and isn't getting any sleep at all. Maybe one is also doing night school to improve themselves. Maybe one is just tired, has ADHD and doesn't have Adderall, or what have you. Any number of things could have caused the issue to occur. We need to really be firm and strong about blaming Microsoft for not valuing us enough to fix this. It's not the developer who caused the issue we should be mad at. It's Blizzard for not fixing the issue. It's Microsoft for not fixing the issue. So, is DEI responsible for the Great Blizzard Bank Heist? Absolutely not. And if you think that's the case, dude, I'm sorry that you feel threatened by other people encroaching upon your space. But that world is gone. And hopefully, it's not coming back. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll be back next week with a new video.